everybody, and welcome to a special review-only edition of the Saturn Studs podcast. Some might argue this is what the show should be every week, but to them I say, no.
If you want it, you need to say something. That's our call to action to drive engagement.
Yeah.
Tell us about how we should just be doing reviews. This minisode is just about Avatar: The Way of Water.
Way of Water. Yeah.
It wasn't made in the 90s, so it doesn't fit into 90s winter.
No.
No.
It was a movie for sure.
Yep.
They tell me it came out.
Long ass movie. Holy shit.
James Blameren's
Jim
gigantic blue Fiesta.
The man has no sense of scale, and he's just like, you want a birthday party? Okay, all right. We're gonna go to Cabo. It's gonna be 14 weeks long. And you're gonna get I don't know, a pet turtle. I'm James Cameron. I'm raising the bar. That's the new norm for birthday parties.
That's ripe to be a meme. I'm James Cameron. I'm raising the bar.
I'm raising the bar. Hello. I mean, South Park had it right. This man knows how to raise the bar. Mm-hmm. But is it good enough to cross that $2 billion threshold mark to make profit and warrant third, fourth, and fifth movie in a franchise that came out, or in a single movie that came out 10 years ago that was Pocahontas reimagined?
Hey. 13 years ago.
13, sorry. It's got over a decade.
That's almost as many years as James Cameron was old when he first wrote Avatar.
Yeah, allegedly. Which,
when
you watch Avatar, you're like, yeah, I could see this being written by a 14-year-old.
Like, isn't that the dream, though? Like, to make such absurd amounts of money that you can take, like, your D&D campaign from when you were a teenager and make, like, hey, I have all this lore source material. I'm going to make a movie franchise out of this.
And then you realize that source material was inspired by the most generic, bland shit ever. And a Pocahontas remake with a Jesus Messiah-like, I don't know, fucking toss in.
Yeah.
Good movie does it make? I don't know.
I said this to Peter when we were watching the movie. Despite the theater being fairly crowded, we were like in the last row, so we did quite a bit of shit talking during the movie.
And we should clarify, when we say crowded, we don't mean like packed. We mean like attendance in the teens.
I couldn't pick the seat that I
20s.
wanted to pick.
Yeah, that's about. There were other people in the center row. That's our definition of packed at this point, because I don't know when the last time I went to a theater. There was definitely a movie this year that we went to where we had to like search for a seat, where we had to like squeeze in wherever we could. It was not this movie.
Probably superhero.
I mean, Black Panther, I think, was the most crowded
I think that
theater
was
I've seen this year, but it's nothing compared to like anyone who tells you that cinemas are back post-COVID is lying through their teeth, because I can tell you, when Coco came out in 2017 around the holiday season, I went to see that movie. There was literally no seats available.
No, I remember distinctly, like, there are multiple movies where I'd have to like sit in a weird corner of the theater. And I remember this. There were 3D movies that I watched where I had to sit in the corner and watch from the side and watching where the 3D would hurt my eyes, because the fucking stereoscope wasn't calibrated for you to be
weird
looking edge on.
Speaking of, I will preface whatever I say about Avatar: The Way of the Water with the fact that I went to go see this in 3D. They were showing way more 3D showings than there were digital showings, and those were the better times. My Cinemark movie theater, if you were going to go see this in Cinemark, was not calibrated properly. They gave us a refund for the movie, and I spent the entire 3 hours of the movie watching it in essentially double vision, with whoever was talking was the only thing in focus. Meanwhile, the entire background was double up, and that included the subtitles. which luckily only came on once or twice.
Yeah.
So I have to ask. I remember the story from our last cast, and in the conclusion of that was they gave you a refund, so you went to go back and watch it again. What were your thoughts on the repeat showing?
Fucking sit there another 3 hours of Blue People. I'm not doing that. I'm gonna go see The Whale. I'm gonna get a free another movie out of it.
The Whale of Water.
Yeah, The Whale of Water. Brendan
The
Fraser's
Whale,
big
which
CGI comeback.
Whale is weird, man. Like this rollout's weird. So like, there's two main Regals within 2 miles of me. There's the Regal at Crossgates Mall, which is the big shopping center mall, the biggest Regal with the most screens in the area. And then there's another mall up north in Colony that also has a Regal. Yep. That mall in Colony, despite being a much smaller location, gets all the fucking indie movies. And like the smaller rollouts. Like that's the art house, the Regal. So the Whale's playing there now. The Whale don't open at the other theater until January 9th.
Oh.
It's tough. Yeah, I've seen, like, I was trying to find showings and just not happening.
Yeah. But circling
that's
back,
because Avatar is taking over all the slots.
Yeah, and circling back to the point I was going to make before we went on that excursion, when I was talking about Peter and I shit talking in the theater, I turned to him and I said, "It's really inspiring how James Cameron was able to take all of these elements from different movies and combine them to make something wholly unoriginal."
Just entirely. Yeah, I know that the haters are gonna be like, "Oh wow, what an original comment!" It's like Fern Gully. Wow, I've never heard that one before. Well, it's true.
So
stop us saying it.
I was thinking about this review leading up to it, and I have one burning question, and it kind of sums up like whether or not Avatar 2 is a good movie or not. There's no denying the fact that a lot of time, money, and like technology went into the making of this movie. Does that itself warrant it being a good movie? Because you can argue there's no Marvel's not doing this. And we've reviewed Marvel movies that have probably would be rated higher than this. I don't think any Marvel movie's done anything close to this.
No. You're correct.
So
it's an interesting philosophical question. Does the technological aspect of this movie make it a good movie? My opinion on that is, and always will be, no. There needs to be substance. You can't be all sizzle, no steak. Like, there needs to be a movie in there that's enjoyable to watch. Now, if the technical aspects of the movie are really, really good, it can maybe make up for a slightly weaker story.
Right.
But it can't lift a bad movie to being good.
At the end of the day, like the thing, it's like with a soundtrack or any one piece of the movie, right? It can help support a good movie, but it does not make itself a good movie. Like the best thing you're going to get out of it, if you put really good high-tech techniques on a bad script or bad direction, which I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm just going to say this is aggressively mediocre.
Underwhelming.
Yeah. It's going to be, and we have seen this before, it's going to make for a good tech demo. Like, it's good. The technology, that is one thing James Cameron does really well, is he being on the bleeding edge of movie technology means that he's going to be the, I don't want to call like angel investor almost. He's the tech seed for a lot of this stuff, and I feel like these techniques are we're going to be seeing them throughout the next decade.
Yeah.
In probably less with better context, but with less good technical execution. And I guess my summary point on this is, like, if you want to go to a movie, if you want to go to a viewing experience that is just high tech, right? You say, I don't care about the story, I'm just there for the technical stuff. Video game people have been doing this since the 90s. They're called demos. It's called the demo scene. And what they are is they take an old old game console and they make a 3-minute program that just absolutely brings it to the limits of what like a Sega Genesis can do.
Right.
And those things have no story, no plot, visual direction, sure, but it's literally just doing cool things with the hardware and doing as much as you can with
Yeah.
the limited specs of, say, an Amiga 64. You know?
That's a good point. I mean, if you were to like take, I mean, there's movies filled with what I mean, quote demo scenes, and if you were to splice all those out, how much of that movie is left at this point? Is it cut in half because half of it's literally just these demo scenes that are put in 48 frames per second, and it looks, I mean, it does look beautiful. It does look like you're on another planet. It looks like footage right off of Pandora in 4K, but
I
there's nothing
suspect it was a
happening.
little higher than 4K resolution.
It's 8K. I'll go high as 8K. So, but like, you know,
No, you're
what
like
you're getting is just these demo scenes and nothing's happening. They're establishing shots. They're setting the foreground, which you know is necessary
they're
in a movie, but
maybe trying
how
to be character building, but like they don't really build the characters too much in a lot of the scenes. Like the main purpose for this is Avatar 2 is going to be one of those movies that you buy on, you know, whatever the new high-end physical format is, and then you pop it in to like put your TV through its paces. Like
yeah,
that I might buy it for that
it,
reason.
it's a benchmark. It's to see like how good you can push
Yeah,
your personal stuff. It's like a Doom
it's the
or
Unigine heaven of movies. It's the
what was the game that always got played?
Crisis.
Crisis, yeah, Crisis 3.
You
That was
can
like,
can it run Avatar?
yeah, can your TV run Avatar?
Um,
We'll see.
that now I will bring up. I'll try and like intercept this point coming in, because we make similar comments about a movie that we really loved, Into the Spider-Verse, which is also a very high tech, very pushing the boundaries kind of a movie. That one of the main draws is just the visual expertise on display. And they're going to say, "Oh, it's just the same kind of thing, right?" Not so. I would put forth that this Avatar is Spider Verse if in between every scene that's already in the movie, there's about a 2-minute scene of Miles web slinging just around, just web slinging around town and walking around town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I wouldn't say I would have much of a problem with Avatar 2 if it wasn't 3 fucking hours long.
Yeah.
And it's at least an hour longer than it needed to be.
If
It's a
they
lot of fat.
condensed it down and trimmed the fat, like in this were like a 2-hour movie, I'd be like, yeah, this is an incredible 2-hour visual spectacle. It might not be much of a story, but it's a technological marvel, and I'd probably have nicer things to say about it. But as it is, it's a 3-hour and 12-minute movie with about an hour and 35 minutes of plot in it.
And let's go through that plot real quick, because a lot of what we have to say and what we're talking about right now is not really related to the plot because of what we're saying. That's It's not a very it's not really a turkey dinner of a plot.
Yeah.
So the synopsis, as it were, we have a very rushed and yet still like 10-20 minutes intro of the sky people coming back to Pandora. Jake, he's raised his family. He's got all these kids with names. I don't know their names. I couldn't tell them apart at first.
And you know what? I would have been paying a lot more attention if I had known these were going to be like the main characters of the movie and not Jake fucking Sully, who I remember from the old movie, and Nakiri.
Yeah, Jake
And
Sully,
like,
who is one of the like least interesting and charismatic heroes in the history of cinema, returns for another movie.
at the end of his arc, nonetheless, too.
Yeah.
We never got to see that arc. Like, we just saw in the beginning of the first Avatar movie, Jarhead, who didn't care about the rules and put his life on the line to, like, save people, and in the end, he's a different person. He's essentially a different character because he has different
He
motivations.
went through the metamorphosis. Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't get to see that. See, it's the journey, the hero's journey that we like to see
Yeah.
over maybe a course of another movie, but we don't get to see that. We get that in a snapshot of like flashbacks when he has the kids, when he's raising them, and when they somehow say he learned the language really well to the point where we don't need subtitles anymore.
And they did
That
did the thing, they did the thing where they changed it to everyone speaking English. And they tried to do it like in Hunt for Red October, but not nearly as smoothly. He basically said, "I learned the language," and then all of a sudden they start speaking English.
Well, that's like what was that? What was that Mel Brooks movie, right? About World War II, where they're like, for the ease of the audience, the rest of this movie will be presented in English. Like the narrator just walks out in front of the movie. He's like, "All right," because the whole thing's like in Polish.
So the
I
right
don't
way to
remember
do
what
that
Mel Brooks movie was.
is Hunt for Red October style, where the guy's reading a book in Russian, and then it pushes in on his face as he says a word that's the same in Russian and in English, and then the movie's English from there on out. That's how you do
We
it
just
with
need to
grace and
find-
tact.
We just need to find that Navi English cognate.
Yeah.
But
Man, if
anyways,
only it was a made up language by one guy. Man, that's too hard.
so the humans come back. For
And then
some
one of them
reason.
never went anywhere. There's this feral child.
Oh yeah, some of the lab
so-
still was there.
Yeah, so they kind of touch base with some of the people who were from the last movie. I pull up the Avatar IMDb so I can actually get their
this
friggin'
great
names.
movie with such memorable characters that we can recall their names.
I
So
know
you
his
had
name was Spider.
Yes,
Norm?
this guy's name was
He
Spider.
hissed a lot. He
Yeah.
growled
And I
hissed a
fucking
lot.
couldn't with the hissing. Every time this kid hissed, I fucking lost my shit. It was hysterical to me.
So you had a few humans that stayed back. You had Norm, who was played by Joel David Moore, and that was one of the doctors.
Yeah, Sigourney
and
Weaver's
one-
character, who has an avatar child through immaculate conception, I guess.
Which
They just kind of
turns
throw that in
into
there.
Which
Yeah,
she just
they-
becomes a Jedi.
Really just show a dead pregnant woman, and they're like, "Holy shit, she's gonna have a child." And I'm like, okay, okay, sure.
Midichlorians we never seen midichlorian count this high.
And they play off like the human that never left Pandora, even though it's a extremely hostile place because he's a human who shouldn't integrate into the society because they even say there's like an immune response to people who aren't Na'vi. And he's just like chilling with his face mask. If he loses it, he's dead.
Well, Jake, it turns out it's just blue paint. It just the Pandora. It doesn't recognize the color blue because he says that he's like, when I draw this blue paint on my back, it's like the forest like recognizes me now. I'm like, oh, okay, so it's just like,
Man,
it's just a UPC code for the planet. Gotcha.
So
I was
if the
under
Sky
the
people ever
impression
learned
that
about that
was
secret,
that was him like being stupid and they were laughing at him for him. But hey, maybe that's actually legit. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past James Cameron to do something like that.
So you do have some remnants of the people still there, the Sky people, the scientists that stayed behind to like look over Spider, who's too young to go back and like cryo tanks, and also Spider is apparently the Stephen Lang's character Quaritch, his son.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that happened. I don't know if there's a pregnant lady in Avatar 1 that just gets passed over. But apparently he has a son.
I think they explain it somewhere. I mean, again, that's part
3
of
hours long.
Yeah. Like the exposition is in there somewhere.
Yeah. And
So-
this is
but
all
now-
the beginning part. This is all like the first
this is
like
the
20
first
minutes
10 minutes.
of
They just fucking churn through that because they have to get to the long meandering shots that go nowhere of the oceans and the whales.
Mhm. And oh man, it's gonna be they changed the villain's whole motivation just because so that it could fit into the plot of this movie. Because now they just said fuck the unobtainium, even which I mean for that is a point that was put forth that I will agree with. Like the why didn't they just you know glass the planet?
Yeah.
It's like, well, they're a mega corporation. They're not the Imperium of man. They're not going to spend that much money. Unobtainium's very expensive, but it's not that expensive. Um, so they just said, "Fuck the unobtainium. This isn't a mining site anymore. It's a
It's a
beachside resort
whaling.
healing operation."
Because
There were
whaling's
one.
bad, guys.
I
They
mean,
were
it's a better motivation than the first one.
they were one Japanese person away from making this racist too. They could. I mean, he almost went there with it, and I think somebody said, "Hey, no,
What if we
that's not
used
tasteful."
Australians? It's kind of close to Japan, but they're white, so it's okay if they're bad people.
And they're like, hey, we came up with this really convoluted method to kill a whale
Which
because
they'll tell you all about, which again
yeah,
supports my idea that this was all like between the lore he had made when he was a kid and the lore he spent all his research dollars on with like the story writing group, you know, the same people he paid to develop the entire conlang of the Navi language. Like he's like, I need to get this out somewhere. I need a return on this investment. Put a scene in where we describe this whaling, this space whaling process step by step, so that you at home know how to hunt a space whale.
Well, Peter
to
and
do
I
it at home.
Peter and I were talking about this the day after we saw it at work, and I made a comparison that I don't think many people are making, and that's that this movie's kind of reminiscent of Waterworld, and
Yeah.
that a lot of it is just stuff happening to show all the stuff happening, and like it doesn't advance the plot or develop the characters at all. A lot of this
No.
movie is this. This movie shouldn't have been a movie. This would have worked so much better as like a 6 or 7 episode miniseries on Disney Plus. That way you could have these chunks of the movie have their own little plots, so you can spend all the time showing like the whales and whatnot, but you don't bog down your already long movie with that.
I
Right.
would love to see how much more money this movie made from 3D sales versus if it was just in like cinema. Because I there has to be this major push to try to get more and more 3D sales because they cost more per ticket.
Well, that's part
And
of the
same with like
reason
IMAX.
Avatar 1 was the highest grossing movie ever, was because of all the extra money it brought in from premium format screenings. Because everyone's like, oh, you got to go see an IMAX. Oh, you got to see it in 3D. No, you got to see an IMAX 3D. And there was just nothing else in the theaters for such a long period of time. People were like, all right, fuck it. I'll go see it in this format now.
Right. And especially with like Avatar 1 when stereoscopic 3D was still in its youthful stages and we hadn't learned that like it just most times it just isn't worth the value proposition. Um yeah, so that's why people watch that. But back to the I guess just getting through the plot here. They just smashed to cut to 1 year later. There's just they skipped over the resistance part. Like you saw the first movie, you know how that goes. Um, and then so it's all coming back to me.
Yeah, so
Somehow the
they're like
Colonel returns.
Yes, the Colonel. No, he because they put his clone mind in an
They
avatar
put his
body,
engram in an avatar's body.
so he
because
wakes up and he's
yeah.
like, "Well, hot dang, I'm a blue person," in his southern drawl.
Yeah, because Jake Sully is causing such a ruckus on the ground. They're blowing up trains. The rebellion is really a thorn in the side of the new people who are there, and you don't really know why the Sky people are back. Like once they
The
get down on
humans,
the
Jake.
ground,
The humans.
no, they're the Sky people because we are the Navi. We're the Navi.
That's right.
So you don't really know 100% why the humans are back, but we just know they're back until you get Quaritch down there in his avatar form, and they're like, you still technically don't know, but they're like, hey, fuck them unobtainium, like we're gonna be terraforming this planet, and that's the long con. So you're like, okay, if we don't get to terraforming in this movie, that's what this series is going to be about. They're just going to keep on fucking up Pandora and somehow change the
It's like Captain Planet.
atmosphere
Yeah.
to capture it. And maybe there's going to be a Captain Planet Navi who they're gonna put together, which maybe is Carrie. Who knows? Maybe they all have to fuse together and polymerize to. They'll find the
See,
secret rings.
we have the earth and we have the water. Now we just need the fire and the air and the heart. But yeah, and also the space whales have adrenochrome inside them.
Yeah. So fast
Just
forward a
stops
little bit.
human agent, just stops it. And
Yeah.
they just
Fast forward a little bit. We find
float
out
that
they're here for the
information
whales,
in there.
and they just throw in this another just bonus scene to just show that they fucking go inside the whale mouth and stab its head and get a little jar of
Yeah.
ambergris like material that stops human aging and is did they give like a percent how much it was worth more than unobtainium or
They said it was
Yeah.
worth like that little jar was worth however many $1 billion or something like that.
Some big number.
which is like
Doesn't matter.
okay it's okay, it's worth it to start poaching whales, fine. So okay, you know, they killed these whales, and but that's skipping
It's-
over the fact that
Yeah.
Jake fled from the air Navi that are now cooped up in a big rock.
Right.
And
Because right, the four
the tree
kids.
fell.
Well, yeah, the tree fell, so they're all in a different camp.
Yeah.
And well, first, side note, you remember how that colonel was like fighting the punching bag with the little skeleton mech?
Yeah.
And we never see that again.
Yeah, you never see
Yeah.
the skeleton mech. Also, I want to point out something with the skeleton mech that just fucking made me lose my mind very early in the
Yeah.
movie is when she's drinking her coffee, this normal sized coffee cup with the skeleton mech. It's like, why not use
And
your
to do
regular-
that, she has to mimic the raising of an imaginary coffee cup to her lips to have the mech raise its giant hand with the coffee cup to her lips. I'm like, just use your regular
It feels
hand.
like this isn't helping any. I could see maybe leaving that in there as a subtle way to show that these are very dexterous robots, but the robots never come back in the movie.
No,
It's the
you have to
third
make
one.
room. You have to make room for the crab robots.
Killing
but yes,
crabs.
the crabs. But anyways, yeah. So the kids in the first of I think 3 situations where they do the same thing, ignoring Jake Sully's directions and going to the place where he said you shouldn't go to, and having it turn out badly for them. This happens multiple times, and they get surprised each time. But this first time, it's where the ending of the first movie was. So Lang's just his human body is still there, but the Navi crew, the evil Navi, the Evies, they ambush all the kids and kidnap them because a crack team of jungle commandos will be better at doing this than four teenagers. And then there's a fight scene that goes on for a while, and then some of them die,
Yeah.
and then there's a hostage, and they say, well, we've got you, so we want you, Jake Sully, because you're the spearhead of this. And, even though he leaves the camp, which should have solved their problem, right, of the leader of the insurgency being there to command the rebel troops. So he has to leave and go into exile. And that somehow doesn't stop the rebels or doesn't stop Lang, because he wants Jake Sully, which
He has a personal revenge vendetta, which makes sense.
yeah, but it doesn't make sense with the entire Terran command like kind of going along with it.
There was a cool scene where Quaritch first comes down to Pandora and finds the final fight scene where Jake originally killed the general in the mech, and then picks up his own skull and is like, "No, like I'm not the same person. I'm not going to make the same mistakes." And I think honestly,
the same mistakes.
well, he does a better job at it. I mean, you can't have him win, but he does a better job at it because he stops doing things the way his old self would do it and starts doing it a little bit more like the
See, they
Navi.
tried
Like
to hint at that, but they never really pushed that concept to a meaningful extent.
the only thing he did it with was the bird, and getting that bird thing, like taking control of that, was like the pinnacle of his like character arc, I guess. And also shittily trying to learn the Navi
Yeah,
language.
he and Spider, it seemed like they were trying to do some like
Cats in the Cradle.
interesting story arc with them, both individually as characters and together as a pairing. But we couldn't fit that story arc in this 3 hour and 12-minute movie. We had too many shots of just swimming through the ocean and Sigourney Weaver's Jesus baby just napping.
Yeah.
Had lots of her napping in there.
Yeah,
So
and this is where we're at right now. That so the story can they go to the island nation and they're the new kids on the block, and this is the entire second act of the movie. This is the fat right here.
yeah, and this kind of the point about the general also kind of wraps around to the fact that they didn't get that arc down in this 3 hour movie. So is this really that good of a movie if they can't just do a simple character arc with good development and it's just surrounded by frills and the characters aren't anything to look at? It's like it's not it's the quality of the writing and the lead of the characters that you're saying is a good movie, not the fact that they look like really good blue people. I mean, there are so many people who are fawning over the fact that the CGI looks so good when he's wrapping the leather around his hand on the fish and like the water splashing over him and it looks so fucking good. It's like, okay, yeah, fine. It looks amazing. Like I've seen this shit in like a video game. Like they're running at like 60 FPS. Like it's good, but that doesn't tell me anything about Jake Sully as a
If
character.
I gave the script of this movie, remove the title, remove the by James Cameron from it, and gave it to any producer in Hollywood, they would say, "You're a fucking hack. Don't bring this to me ever again." Because there's just no substance to this movie. The plot is so threadbare. It's basic revenge plot. It boils down to basically the same shit as the first movie and 1,000 other movies you've seen before. The characters are so forgettable that I don't remember any of their names except Jake Sully, and I only know his name because it's said like 17 times in the movie. None of them go through any meaningful character arcs. The story arc, is very bland and basic.
It was only at this point, the second act of the movie, where I finally figured out what each character was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So there's the three kids who this whole act follows. There's the older one who is older brother and needs just to
perfect son.
He's set up for a third act plot twist. That's his purpose in the story.
Yeah.
You have again daughter she's just a Jedi, so we get to see her like controlling fish and sitting underwater, just kind of looking. Wow. And then you have the other son, who his arc is the whale arc. He gets the whale arc, which we guessed. Kurt, we guessed this a good 10 minutes in advance.
Yeah.
So the natives or the water tribe on a cool prank, classic shenanigans. They make him go out to the zone where no one else goes out to, which
the forbidden zone, if you will.
if our little Navi boy grew up on Earth, he would see that coming from a mile away, that this is a drop him in a cornfield situation.
Oh, you guys want to be friends with me now? Yay, thanks.
Well, that was sudden. There's nothing suspicious at all about that.
Nope. So they take him out to Dead Man's Curve, and they predictably drop him in the deep water with the sharks and whales. And as soon as the shark comes at him, Kurt and I are like, oh, okay, so he's gonna overcome the ocean animal and come back to the admiration of the tribe, and that's how he's going to get his status. And Kurt, you added the very specific point of it being a named creature that was particularly dangerous. And so all of this happens, and then he saves the whale, and we come back, and we learn that yes, indeed, it is a special named whale who is different from all the other whales and doesn't hang out because he's a moody loner who's dangerous, and he's a bad boy whale. And we
Well,
call them whales because they have a name, but they really just are whales.
And yeah, that's a point I want to make about the creature designs in this movie versus the first one. The first one was so much more imaginative and alien. This movie, all the creatures look like fish that you would find here on Earth, just a little bit differently shaped or colored.
it's because fish are alien, and if we look at our own oceans, it's like we know less about our oceans, man, than we do the space,
I mean,
man.
while that's true, it does not make for a an interesting visual design.
Yeah, I
And
mean
like,
the flying fish were just like kind of big, like I mean, those exist here on Earth, like the ones that jump out and glide a little bit.
Yeah.
it was made to be molded into resin and cast on top of your collector's edition cup, or used as a theme ride at the Avatar World. There's a between that and the submarines that come in later, the little tube submarines. Oh, this is ripe to be adapted into theme park rides.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's where a lot of the investment came from, I'm sure.
I would love to see. I can't wait for the new whale poaching ride from
Disney,
where
the
you
kid
actually
gets
have
he gets the little gun and the kid gets to shoot
yeah.
down the.
You're all in charge of different things, and like you have to press buttons at the right time to like send the crab walkers out to
Mission space style. Yeah.
yeah. So all right, shoot the explosive tip rocket at the whale bottom. Shoot it in its butthole so it explodes within.
Boom. So I have to think that from this point for the next hour is what people who like this movie enjoyed about this movie, because it was I will maintain that the big draw of these movies, for these people, I feel like it has to be the setting, like people who want to just be immersed in this world and just be there.
Oh, absolutely.
So people who like that stuff about this movie, they just get an hour of things happening in this village.
Yeah, and if you set aside the fact that, a movie is supposed to be happening and you're like in a theater, away from your home, wearing not your comfort, like I could probably get behind this if I were watching this at home. Like where you could don't go to see this in the theaters. I think you might find more enjoyment if you watch this when it comes to Disney Plus, so you can fast forward through parts that get too dull for you and be in your comfy pants on your couch looking at the pretty scenery. That I could get behind, but I'm in a movie theater. It's late at night. We grabbed like a 6:00 showing, so I already know I'm not going to get home till like 11. And I'm like, okay, come on, let's get on with this. And it just keeps going and going and going. And there's no obvious point to any of it.
Right. And part of it is the fact that a lot of the scenes, it's on a micro and macro level, where each scene individually is like, it's a full scene. There's not a lot of, it's not really tightly edited. And then on the macro scale of the entire act, it's just kind of meandering, because again, like a lot of things just happen over and over again. I feels like,
yeah, no, it's very repetitive, this movie. Like
there's scenes of them having to contend with like local discrimination, and it's the same characters doing it again and again, because you don't want to have to like.
There's scenes of
there's
them.
not a lot of fleshing out being done about the water tribe.
No, they're very
culture.
basic. Like you see a couple. Obviously you have them train on how to ride the fish things, and then you have they present this tradition that they all have a whale that they're soul bonded to, and they can tap for one in a blue to share memories.
Yeah.
And
and I should have seen this coming as soon as the one, like the chief, the queen, the water queen,
Yeah.
says to the whale queen, like, "Oh man, you're pregnant and about to have kids." I really should have been like, "Oh, she's gonna get tragically killed,"
Yeah.
so you can make
Yeah.
the villains eviler
And
for the
then you
fucking.
see their tree of life, which we saw the forest tribe equivalent of in the first
Yeah.
movie. So that you assume that that last one's universal to all the different Navi tribes, and I'm sure whatever biome we visit in the next movie will have their own tree of life.
What are we gonna do? Mountain people next or something
Mountain or
like that?
tundra?
Lava.
That's what I'm thinking.
I want it to be a desert,
The Navi desert.
and there's just a little cactus. It's a little frilly cactus. And there's like little they have to hook into the ostriches or like emus, and they're riding around on
No,
big desert
camels.
chickens.
I want to see Navi Pandoran camels.
They have four. It's like their humps are like in a V shape.
Yeah. They've got like a
Oh
four-leaf
man.
clover on their back.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that like are we gonna have different Navi tribes that are differently adapted for each place? Because I'll give we've been ripping on this a lot. The one thing I did like was the fact that I mean it's the obvious like of course softball thing where the water Navi were more suited for that environment. You see their tails have are wider. They have like I don't know if they had like webbed feet or webbed fingers, but they also have eyelids that they have a secondary eyelid that
Mhm.
closes sideways. Um, I the only thing that didn't fucking make sense was the fact that you just had to breathe differently, and that's how you could stay underwater.
Just breathe through your
Whereas like
diaphragm. It's okay.
no, there's like documented like tribes on Earth that have higher lung capacity and are more
Mhm.
efficient with their oxygen because they need it to swim better.
Mhm.
And
Which
that's how evolution parsed out their natural
yeah,
selection.
and that's I have a point to that, which we talk about the adaptations to the environment. Um, so obviously the Navi are supposed to be an upright bipedal thing that it has the body pattern at least reminiscent of humans, right?
Mhm.
They're supposed to be like humans, but with some extra, so some flair, a little swag on them.
Mhm.
We have not only is there a people who live in the ocean and have those, but we have people who have trained to be professional swimmers, and let me tell you, they're not like little thin sticks. They are giant beefy people with huge pecs who have to be super stacked to swim because using you know no one swims with their arms down like like a little like an iguana in the water. I mean, iguanas can do that, but they walk on all fours and like sit in the sun and eat lizard and eat bugs for a living. Um, People who have to do that need gigantic pecs because we swim with our arms,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure they swim with their arms in the movie too. And doing that, you need big, giant, bird-like pectoral
A
muscles.
lot of
Um,
breaststroke in this movie.
yes, and they don't have a lot of breast.
It's it's the more natural one that they could do. I wonder if it's the best one that fit with the CGI because if they were doing this all the time, maybe they were knocking into their camera equipment a lot.
It probably
And
doesn't look
this,
as cool,
Yeah.
like other
yeah,
than like snaking through the water. So yeah, no webbed fingers on an animal that isn't going to use them to swim, and in a wide tail isn't. Didn't quite resonate with me on a big old science level.
well, James
Um,
Cameron would say, well, it looked cool, so
sure.
check and mate.
Yep. So Colonel keeps hunting them down. The kids go out to warn the one kid's buddy whale that they're getting killed, and then of course they run into the colonel at that point in time and are taken hostage. And so
Again.
there's a big fight. The oldest son dies. Jake
Mhm.
kills the colonel again, except he isn't dead, and Spider drags him out of the water because they were supposed to have a character arc together that made that moment
Yep.
make sense.
And they all get trapped on the sinking ship. Again, it's a huge fight. This big old action scene with a lot of goofy stuff, like whales doing the sonar, which I mean, fair. like sonar is a powerful weapon, it's actually very powerful. Like ships have to turn their sonar down when they're within like hundreds of miles of anything. Otherwise, they'll just turn everything in the water into paste because high decibel noise carrying through a very easily conductive medium of water is like a bomb going off and will turn you
Yeah, which is
into
why I
a jelly
laugh with all
bean.
these depth charges. Like everything in that water's dead as soon as one of those goes off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but anyways, yeah, big long fight scene, sinking ship, lots of people getting caught and then freeing themselves and then getting caught again and then freeing themselves again.
Yeah.
And
Big
at the end of it,
Titanic scene.
and
I
yeah,
love that.
everyone's trapped in sinking, coincidentally, in this sinking ship in different compartments, and it's up to our young Jedi to use her glowy fish powers to get the miraculous Deus Ex Machina angel wings that the literal water wings that let you breathe underwater.
Which were
Because
The
used
blue
like
tunic.
twice.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
were used like twice, and I'm like, use that more?
I feel like if you're going
Everybody
into battle,
You might want to
you
have
should
one of
just
those. Yeah.
everyone should just get one, and that way you
Yeah.
don't have to come up for air when you're
They're
fighting.
like, that's such a broken mechanic in this game that is Avatar 2. Just to be able to breathe underwater indefinitely with a little backpack.
Well, it's just like the blue
Is it
tunic
cheaper than
from Zelda Ocarina of Time or the rebreather from Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, which is necessary to beat the last stage. Don't tell me you can do it without it. I don't believe you.
Is it more or less broken though than the forest? Who's Jake Sully's wife?
Oh, Nahiri's bow? Yeah, no.
Nahiri.
Yeah, Nahiri
Oh my god, Nahiri's bow, which is like,
has
hey,
99 piercing.
oh my god, the amount of piercing that's on that motherfucker. They're like,
They
it's
love
going through
that shot
what I
where
assume is like bulletproof glass on these like little drones or planes or whatever. Oh yeah, what happens when they come out with drones and they're not piloted anymore? Then Nikiri is just like, they'll all drop rocks on them, maybe.
yeah. Yeah, they love that particular shot where there's a flying craft and she comes up on her dragon and shoots it through the cockpit, killing the guy. They do that shot at
They
least
use
like 3
that
or 4
so
times.
many times. It's like,
Yeah.
I get it. It goes through glass and will stab somebody in the cockpit.
And she
I
breaks
saw it in
her
the first
bow.
movie. Oh yeah, because it was her father's bow, and she's like, I don't know.
They tell you
maybe
that
broken off
right
from that
before
tribe.
it breaks. So, like, yeah, that's a great pattern in this movie. Anytime someone mentions the sentimental value of something, be certain that it will be destroyed in the following
It's
scene.
it's a Chekhov's bow, if you might.
Yeah. But you know what this means is that it's going to get reforged into something even stronger in the next movie.
Yeah. How about just a gun?
Jake uses a
She
gun,
turns it into
seems
a
to work out
crossbow.
okay.
Yeah. Jake Sully was knocking bitches down left and right with his gun bow. You know,
Ancient Navi weapon of gun.
Gun.
it's like, I get that they raided that train for all of its like weapons cache and explosives and shit like that. It's like, I still see people using bow and arrows. Also, the thing that I got that fucking pissed me off, were the arrows attached to her bow? Because I
don't-
didn't see it quiver.
Oh yeah,
I didn't see.
I
had
think
no
she does
quiver.
Persian style where you hold all the arrows in the same grip as the bow foregrip.
Oh, okay, yeah, bow foregrip. Okay.
We should talk about
She had like 60 of them.
Can we talk so there's the fight scene, the movie ends and they say, "Yay, we are the way of water."
And we have to fight now.
Yeah. You can't run. We have to fight, you know, like we weren't doing. But anyways, I want to talk about that epilepsy. That was her super Jedi power, was that first of all, they call in the human medics and no one realizes that this is a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
I know, like, okay, sure, dire situation, whatever. But they are surprised when the fact that they called the human medics over gave the human military a lead to track them on. They're all surprised by that fact, even though they left the village explicitly so they could go into hiding and not have any contact. Yeah, but they go down and like, you know, all this magic stuff, it's just epilepsy. She's just having a seizure.
Well, and he even went off and said, you know, sometimes in the olden days, they said epileptics are a way to commune with God. And it's like, they're hitting
Jake,
that
do
right
you
on the
really
head.
feel like you communed
Jake,
with
do you
God?
talk with God?
It's been a while, luckily. But no, I haven't heard God in a long time. Not even when I was spazzing
Hey,
out.
God,
I did not hear
you there?
God.
It's me, Margaret.
It's me, Marky.
Yeah. So as you can surmise from our, we got through the plot, and we've interjected our feelings on this movie. There's just nothing to it. It's way too long. Like, it's hard for me to recommend anyone go see a 3-hour movie unless it's really fucking good. And this is not really fucking good. The technology's cool. The movie being in a high frame rate was cool. It did kind of make it look kind of cheap in some areas, just because like you're so used to film being 24 frames per second and video being higher. So when you see these frame rates in a movie, you're like, this looks a little cheap.
Mhm. The last thing I'll do before we end this mini-sode here is attempt to explain why, even though these are all very upfront issues we had with the movie, and it was no problem at all for us to kind of just jump right on these, why it's making so much gosh darn money. And we looked at the thing, we'll talk about it on our next episode of the cast, that's made a lot of money worldwide. Um, and I think I will theorize that all the reasons we have been ragging on it, the threadbare plot, the simplistic characters, the emphasis on visual, showing the visuals over telling the details of the plot, are all great for a foreign audience where translations may not line up, cultural touchstones may not line up, but all the things he made, which is just showing nature. Everyone can relate to big, pretty natural vistas and nature shows, and can empathize with the defending your homeland from invaders. Those are very, universal kind of cultural
It's
themes.
basically RRR, but less exciting.
Yeah. There's no dance numbers in this, even though they're,
It really felt like there should have
well,
been.
they do sing a song.
That's true.
And she has remember how, oh my God. Remember how this whole movie was framed with, there's a 2-second framing device on the beginning and the end of this 3-hour movie, which was Nefertiti, or whatever her name was, talking about her song beads, right? She's like, the first song bead was when I did my husband and we had little babies. And then the second one was when he did his first hunt. And then 3 hours later, and every song bead has one last bead in it. The end.
Death.
When you just, I absolutely just entirely forgot about that. But
Yeah,
it was that was all within that framing device.
Yeah.
Turns out not the best in a 3-hour movie where you reference it only twice.
Yeah.
That's tough.
3.25 hours almost. I think we're
Yeah.
discounting the extra 12 minutes, how much longer that makes it feel.
Yeah. It's like when it's the same thing as when you're in class for 3 hours and you're waiting to get out for lunch. Those extra 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll leave my review on it like this. This is a longer Godzilla versus Kong, where it's just a big CGI fuckfest that anybody can watch it and be entertained. This probably goes an hour longer than it should be because too much establishing shots. But everybody's gonna like it. A lot of people, it's gonna really go towards the general audience, and it is doing well. We should touch on the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It passed $1.1 billion, and it's only been out for, is this the third week that it's been out?
Yes.
I think. So it's at 1.1 in 3 weeks, but it is dropping fast. I don't know if it'll get to 2 billion. It probably won't, unless they do some sort of re-release in 6 months and it brings in another 10 20 million.
The President's Day release of Cast.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean they got to do something, because I don't think it's getting to 2 billion.
Certainly not.
I know they're Yeah, I know they're definitely trying to greenlight um 4 and 5, and I'm sure they probably are because they have
Oh yeah.
projections that they can probably start working on it right away. Um, but we're gonna get more of these movies, and unless they do something with the timing, which it does not look like the third one is going to be any shorter. Um, he wants a 9-hour cut, fully finished, to be sent to the cutting room floor. So
Yeah,
fuck
because
me, I guess.
didn't he say like if this one doesn't do numbers, he's still gonna make three, but he's
Yeah,
gonna do an ending cut where he
yeah.
wraps up the story.
Well,
Um,
I feel like three is the logical conclusion to this story arc. I don't know what the fuck you do with 4 and 5. You better not try to drag this out for 2 more movies.
That's what I'm
they're
talking
gonna
about.
take
I'm
the
like,
fight to Earth.
they definitely said, oh Jesus. Now, actually, I might watch
Screw all
it.
this beautiful Pandoran vistas. We're just gonna go
To
back
the
to dirty
dying
Earth.
Earth, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, shit, that'd be something crazy. Or maybe because this is just the moon of that one planet. What if they go to that main planet, or they find a
Isn't that
different
just
planet?
it's a big gas giant?
Isn't that?
Maybe,
I think you might be
probably.
confused with Pandora from Borderlands.
No, this is a Pandora's a moon
Yeah,
on this giant planet.
Oh,
that's
right.
why that's why they have that time of day called eclipse, where which is like what, an hour long, and that's it. It takes an hour for their main planet, their mother planet, to transit the sun,
Oh, is that why the final battle was like broad daylight and then just
and then pitch
dark,
black.
pitch
Yeah.
black? Yeah, okay,
So
makes
the
sense.
Pandoran day-night cycle has a time of day called eclipse.
The Phobos runs on Martian time. Martian
Yeah.
days called a soul. It's
Soul.
23.5 hours long. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
better than Doom
we'll
Annihilation.
see.
I'll give it that, but only just. Hard for me to say go out and see this unless you're someone who really, unless you're one of the 6 people that really loved the first Avatar movie, then you'll love this because it's boy howdy's it more Avatar. Um,
Yep.
I
but
mean, if
for
you're not looking for a great story to like really draw you in, and you just want some food porn, movie porn, food porn's a food channel. Sorry, my bad. Slip of the tongue.
It's just about time for lunch.
But if you just want some like movie, food for your eyes, then I'd say go see it. If you got 3 hours to kill and you really feel like doing that,
yeah, I
sure.
can think of better
And
ways to spend the 3 hours, but I can think of worse ways too.
mhm. I'll say, you know what? You probably don't need this review because if you're watching this, you've already seen the movie.
That's true.
Just just by statistics. So
Sure.
glad you could tune in anyways.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well,
But
that's gonna wrap up this mini-sode. We'll be back. This will probably go up on the Friday, and then the regular episode will be up on Saturday. So until then, be well, stay safe. Party like it's 1995.
peace.
Bye bye.